Hello and welcome to Heart Space, formerly TJ in Your Mind, a poetry podcast with myself, TJ, and featuring every month a guest poet based right here in Berlin. We talk about poetry, love, life, and everything in between. So sit back, relax, and have a listen. My guest for today, Michele Battistioli, artist name No Story Lies. He is a storyteller and author active in Berlin. His goal, in his words, is to make the world a better place, word by word. He is currently involved in various poetry, workshops, music, and game projects as a writer and performer, always looking for the next story to tell.
The difference between you and I, friend, is that you want to win people over. I want people to win. You want people to be there in the moment of your triumph. I want to be there in their moment of despair. They will read through your lines while they find me by their side and ask which one lies.
So, Michele,
Hello.
welcome, welcome, welcome. You are my second guest, Lee being my first. It is a pleasure to have you with me. So, identity, your thoughts.
My thoughts. Yeah, that's quite the theme. It's one of those topics that you can talk for like days without even scratching the surface. But like when someone asks you to talk about it, maybe you don't have anything to say.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah, like choosing the poem for this episode, I was thinking, what is identity actually? I think the more I experienced life and people and myself within it, I think I realized that identity is more about what you do. Um, it's not so much about maybe your starting point or your end point. It's about how do you express yourself? How do you externalize um, your inside, your emotion and thoughts out into the world? I
Okay.
feel like we tend to associate external things to
Mm,
identity, like origins, ethnicity,
mm,
um, professions,
mhm,
or kind of like certain mindsets. Um, but does that tell exactly who you are?
I see your point. Okay. Um, I agree with you to some level. I'm not sure about the how it's it's almost though you said how others view us, because so what we externalize
Hmm.
is us externalizing, but it is how it's received though, is it not?
I think it's more about how you externalize it. So the perspective it's always on you
Hmm.
because you cannot predict or even
Mm,
control how people
indeed.
will perceive you. Um, coming from Italy, people will think I eat a lot of pasta or I talk a certain way, I have a certain
Hmm.
accent,
Yeah.
which can be true,
Yeah.
but it doesn't define my entire personality
Mm,
or my identity. All the things we are or we have done are part of our identity. They
mm,
all make our identity. And even then, not necessarily. If
mm,
I come from a certain plane, it doesn't mean that I have a certain uh, attitude or certain prerogatives.
mm,
It's always about the environment I'm part of. I'm part of, um, and sometimes people tend to describe you or judge you, not necessarily in a bad way, but
mhm.
with this in mind. So, what are the preconceived notions about this?
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Exactly.
which is having prejudice is not. I think it's a natural thing to
Mm,
do because we don't know the world. We don't know uh, the what lives beyond our borders,
yeah.
whether societal, familiar. and so on. So I think it's natural for us to just think about things that we heard of or we discuss with others. Then it's a matter of like when you meet these other circumstances, other people, how do you behave? How um, are you just sternly sitting in your beliefs, or are you allowing yourself to hear also what's beyond what you know, essentially?
Okay, interesting. And I would ask then, based on what you've said about people may have preconceived notions, so prejudging, hence the word prejudice, um, do you feel a sense of responsibility being an Italian man, and people may think this is what Italian men are? Do you feel any sense of responsibility to say, maybe I should help change that in any way, shape, or form?
Not quite. I feel like each person represents themselves first and foremost. It's a bit like, if people see me, they will tend to say I'm a cis white man, which is part of who I am, but at the same time doesn't describe me entirely.
Indeed.
I feel, for myself, I see myself more as a person that is part of a world with other humans. So I see it as a bit like building blocks. So usually when we meet someone else, we kind of like have these blocks that help us define this person. And a lot of times could be like origin, shade of skin, or cultural background. You try to put always person first. Imagine like thinking about that no matter our differences, we are more similar than not from any place that you can come from, or any background, or any view you might have on life. And I think some people might forget that at times, even though here in Berlin, a lot of people will define themselves as very open-minded, very tolerant. Sometimes if you go in a certain direction, you end up in the other opposite at times.
Yes, exactly.
So I always thought that Berlin has this idea of like being alternative and thinking, oh, we don't think about boxes. You can be who you are. But at times I feel like it's just
that is a box.
Different boxes. Yeah, exactly. So, and even for people that are like, oh, I'm very open-minded, very acceptive. Does it work for everyone, or maybe for certain things only, or certain people?
No, I definitely agree with that. I think, and it's something that I've come across as a black man, not necessarily in Berlin, but growing up in the UK as a black man and sounding the way that I do. One is expected to sound a particular way as a black man in the streets of Birmingham, where I grew up. And then I rock up and I sound the way that I do. And then instantly, what people say is that, oh, he's not a black man. I'm like, excuse me. I see my skin. It's still black. And even something I noticed, even when I was here in Berlin, I was working with some American people. And I forget what it was I said. And someone said, oh, he doesn't know he's black. I was like, excuse me?
Yeah. There's this thing of like, you're not even your own, like your own self.
Exactly.
And I think there's also this, there's this kind of like, when we talk about racism, which delves into identity, there's always this like, the first thing that comes to mind is black against white. And it's like, we're kind of like these two sides of this, like eternal conflict and grueling oppression and so on. So much so that I think a lot of people interpret that into how we solve this into, oh, I did so much wrong, or my culture did so much wrong, and it kind of like still puts distance in between people, which I think it's exactly what is continuing this. Because racism can be negative, that's usually the connotation. It can be also in the positive in a way. It's still considering kind of like a culture that maybe you attribute something very good or cool. So it's like there's these two sides of the thing that is still not considering the person for who they are, but just on their race or identity or, cultural identity and so on. So it's still like creating a distance, I think, which is not helping into solving the problematic side of it.
I think that's it. I agree with you to some degree. I think once we use the term racism,
Hmm.
then it instantly takes away. So there's a positive you try to put in there, but I think once we put the word racism, then that, because the ism is almost any ism, alcoholism,
Hmm.
racism, ageism, whatever isn't negative. So I think once we use that, um, I would more go towards the other term we used earlier on, the prejudging, the
Hmm.
prejudice. You know, as much as that has still more of a negative connotation, it's arguably more neutral because it's to prejudge something or someone or whatever based on whatever one's notions might be. Um, and for me, what I found interesting being the black man that I am, is always the notion is that you cannot be articulate in a particular way. If you are, then you're trying to be. I was like, well, I'm not trying to be anything. I'm just me.
Yeah, exactly.
you know, and my after I spent a heck of a lot of time trying to deal with that, going to inner city schools in Birmingham, trying to grapple with this thing because everyone around was always telling me continually that you are not, even at my church, same thing, you are not. And trying to grasp this thing, but I am. I know my parents, I know my grandparents, I can follow my generations back, God knows how long. I
Hmm.
know where I come from. Um, and the thing my mother always said to me, just remember where you come from.
Yeah.
That's it. Remember where you come from. And that is the foundation. Know what roots you're grown from and then grow into whatever you wish to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
you know. So for me, that's identity. Others will view us in whatever way they wish to, but then I think our responsibility is to be the very best version of us that we can be. Um, Sometimes it's amazing, other times not so much.
Yeah. 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 When I talk about racism in positive, it's not like that. It's good, of course. So I don't want to get canceled here. It's more about that you can say something bad about a certain person because of how they look, but also saying something positive is still like a prejudice based on how they appear. So, for example, they could say, "I'm really good at cooking," or "I'm really handsome because I'm Italian." So it's still like based on a pre-existing condition or
Mm,
situation. And I think Berlin, I think it's can be a good place because, especially when you go into this artist world or the space we have for poetry, I always feel like gender or well ethnicity origins are always like in the background a bit.
mm,
They find you as you are, but we listen to what you say. We listen
yes.
to who you want to be in a way.
Mm,
How do you want to be perceived? We try to get closer to that rather than thinking, oh, he's a man with these characteristics.
mm,
We try
yeah.
to um, listen to the person how they want to express themselves,
Mm,
and that's how I think here maybe it's a bit of a bubble, not everywhere perhaps, but yeah, as we said, like Berlin can have also this thing of like you have to be different, which is still kind of like an imposition still.
yeah, indeed.
Um,
Berlin,
yeah, how do
yeah.
you feel about the situation here or in in the art space and so on?
I think it's still growing into what I want it to be. It's not there yet. I think that from the very beginning, I always said that I want a space where we can just be ourselves
Hmm.
and feel completely free to be that and feel encouraged to do that. Um, our original location was great for that, but it wasn't great to invite new people in. Where we are now is great to invite new people in, but it's not yet. So I'm now still trying to find what could be our forever home, you know, a space that is our own. So when we come in there, we feel in this little safe space that's just for us. And then we can discuss whatever we want to discuss, feel whatever we want to feel without background noises or whatever. So I'm still a work in progress. I'm still trying to figure out. It's trying to figure out where, how, and all of that. But I like how we're getting there, slow and steady. It's the community for me. So I think the first priority is people, people. getting the people together, um, whether I'm involved in the conversation or not. If they're talking to each other when I'm not there, that's wonderful, you know, because that's the idea. It is building itself without my help. Sorry, the
Yeah.
mic was moving of its own accord.
The magical mic that moves on its own.
Indeed. But yeah, that's my thought on hot space.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of like how much are you willing to follow these labels rather than observe the world for what it is and the people for who they are. And I think I always thought that like labels help others understand ourselves, but maybe the person shouldn't use labels for themselves because they are who they are, and I don't need to define myself.
Hmm.
Well, at least that's how I feel like. Maybe it's because I come from a place of privilege in certain ways, so I don't have to mm, think about like for me it will be less likely to be discriminated in Europe, for
Hmm.
example.
True.
So it's still possible, especially for political reasons,
Yeah.
perhaps. But for me, maybe it's not like as a pressing matter as others. But I try to understand what it means for everybody.
Now that's actually an interesting point to look at because a while back I was having this conversation with a friend of mine in the UK, an Irish guy, and we were talking about this identity issue. And I told him, I said, before I'm a man, I'm black, then I'm a man, and he couldn't understand. He was, but what do you mean? And I explained that here in the UK, that's the first thing anyone sees. That's the first thing I'm judged on. That, then a male. And it took him a while to grasp that. But it's a simple truth. It doesn't matter where I go. If I'm traveling somewhere, I have to investigate, check how do they deal with people
Mhm.
of my color. That's very important. I need to know because if I'm going to go there for work or whatever, I need to, know how to comport myself, you know. Um, and I've come to realize it's not something that everyone does, but any minority will tell you that they have to. It's absolutely essential. Even when I was working in Italy, the same thing. I was working in Sardinia, beautiful place, but if I was walking in a quiet area in the middle of the day, I need to make sure I'm not walking too close to people's homes because if they look out and they see a black man close, you know, I'm walking on my own, just enjoying the sun in the middle of the day, but it's just one black man in front of their home. That is never, you know, and not in that part of Italy. When I get to closer into Pula and then into the resort we were working at, Forte Village, that's fine because everyone's everywhere. But in those little areas, those rural
Mhm.
areas, I can't. No. At the street, I try to walk in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
In the middle of the street. So, see, look, here I am.
Yo, it's me. What up?
you know, so that it's clear. And when I was traveling to Russia some years back, everyone said, "Oh, TJ, black man going to Russia. Oh, be careful, be careful." I said, hey, don't worry. I'm gonna stay in my group, you know, and not go outside of that. But even then, I had performed at this club, and after I had finished performing, I was, mingling with people, and some people called me over, and I thought, oh, they wanted my card or something. Apparently, they wanted to know if I could sell them some weed. I was like, I was just on stage. Yeah, but do you have any weed? It's like, what? I couldn't. It was unfathomable for me. I was like, is that all you know of black people? You know,
And
and
also, you don't listen.
you know, and then later on, like the taxi driver always drove me to the very door of my hotel. But on this one particular night, after we finished, the gate was closed. So he had to stop outside the gate, and I would get up, open the gate, and walk through. And so on this one night, when I had to walk from the gate to the hotel, in that little span, I was accosted by people asking me if I could sell them some weed. And that was, you know, but then as much as people were like, oh my goodness, you got that in Russia, I was like, dude, I got this in Birmingham. So, you know, for people of color, it's nothing new. Um, So it's always interesting when non-person of color says that, yeah, it's great. It's for me. It's I see nothing there. But then when you say that you try to understand from another person's viewpoint, try to see them and to see what their perception might be. So that for me is encouraging, you know. Um, that way we can all, in time, be one, as the songs say, you know. But yeah, tricky thing identity because we all have our personal identities, and everyone has views on those. The instant they see us or the instant they hear our voices, that's another one in itself.
Yeah. I think it's like usually misunderstanding comes from a place of ignorance, as in because like where I grew up in Italy, it wasn't so much multicultural where I lived. Like everyone looked like me essentially, and also it's weird to say, but I was kind of lucky that my parents never taught me how to or like to hate someone else,
Mm-hmm.
maybe except for the political views.
Of course.
So, but at the same time, it doesn't mean like I know, like I don't know how to act with different people that I don't know.
Yeah.
So saying that like you shouldn't be uh, like insulting or uh, pretend to know about someone just because you don't know their background and so on.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't know how it works
Yeah.
because I always acted with people that I know and of
Okay.
my
Yeah.
the circle. So and that's when the difference comes whether you want to hold on this like idea that you have that maybe someone told you or history tells in a way
Yeah.
how the connection between different ethnicities and so on has been going on, or if you let yourself also understand the other side from their side, because
Yeah.
of course everyone is different. It doesn't matter where you belong or where you came from as much. If it matters to you, then it matters.
Yeah.
But it matters exactly who you are. And well, this idea of hatred towards other cultures and so on oftentimes comes from a place that I don't understand and I'm afraid
Okay. Yes. Yes. True.
because it's something different. Then I don't know how it works. And especially I feel like maybe in a context when you're white, there will be some people that say you should feel bad and in a way like be apologize or like being somewhat trying to like repent yourself from this past. At the same time, well, we are not responsible for what happened, but
Yeah.
we are responsible for what we do now and how we can handle this situation now.
Yeah.
So that's the important part: is the now and the person it's in front of you.
Agreed.
And of course, for some people will be more important, for others will be less important. But at the same time, we should care about others and think about who is this person, not just like really get stuck at this like first door of the person, and rather not seeing, especially when they invite you in, like when you do poetry or you do music or you do art, it's always an opening into yourself.
Yes.
And it's up to you then to be like, okay, no, I just stand at the door, but that's
Exactly.
what it is, right? But then opening and then seeing the person, like when I read like this book from James Baldwin, and I started seeing a perspective that I didn't know, because like we couldn't be more different perhaps than this person. And it's interesting how he writes sort of letter to his nephew talking about how the relationship between black and white people are in the US. And it's interesting to see there's so much quiet anger about the situation, but also the understanding of like a parent with a sort of child that doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how the hate comes from not understanding and kind of hating yourself as well. So that's like a perspective that I never been in. So it's kind of like a new world, and that's on me then to see. Okay, then I can see this perspective. Then I can understand the consequences of the past. But it's hard to do when someone wants to tell you this perspective or like impose you this perspective a bit.
Okay. Yeah.
But then when you see it from someone that has been there, that talks about it, then you can also think about, okay, how does that involve me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I say, like, we can do something about it now. I cannot do anything about the past because I wasn't there.
Exactly.
But I can be a good person now. I can be an understanding person now, helping others also to be seen, to be
Mm-hmm.
heard.
Indeed. And I think that is a perfect way to end this. Um,
All right, we did it.
Indeed. Thank you ever so much, Michele.
Thank
That
you.
was wonderful. So, on that note, I look forward to seeing you at our next Heart Space meeting, which is no, we won't say that here and now because this won't be airing until the first Friday of February.
I see.
So, indeed.
I
So,
have this time until getting cancelled. Nice.
once again, thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Say this today, and all will love you. Say the same tomorrow, all will loathe you. The criteria for acceptance changes day by day. The trends come and they go, seeking to decide how we grow. Even the most abstract of views can gain a plethora of reviews. Even the puritanical can amuse under the right gaze. All we seek to do, all we must seek to do, despite all that would dissuade you, be the best that you can, with the best that you have. Ignore the vexations of those in the pews. Brush off the noises like yesterday's news. Surround yourself with the essence of you, and nestle in your embrace. Shut out the dross, 'tis not your loss. Let none dictate your path, for at the end of the day, come what may, you'll still be standing in the aftermath. Thank you for joining us on Heart Space. It is always a pleasure to have you with us. We will return in a month with another special guest. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this poem, it, as well as a number of others, is available in my latest poetry compilation book, Perfectly Imperfect, available as a Kindle download or in print via Amazon and all major online retailers. And of course, we can be found on Instagram at heartspace_villain. We meet fairly regularly in person right here, so feel free to come join us. We'd love to welcome you. Once again, thank you for listening.